Hi, I'm Maureen Rogers, and welcome to Curtain Call. And we have two actors with us from Laurel Playhouse who are in Pride and Prejudice that is opening October the 21st. So please introduce yourselves and tell us what roles you are playing in Pride and Prejudice.
So my name is Gary Urice, and I play Charles Bingley.
I'm Spencer Nelson, and I play Jane Bennett.
So Spencer, could you tell us a little bit about the plot of Pride and Prejudice for those who don't know it?
Sure. Pride and Prejudice is based on Jane Austen's novel of the same name. It's about a girl, Elizabeth Bennet, in Regency England, and her struggle going through trying to get married, but at the same time trying to keep her independence and marry for love instead of for money like her mom wants her to.
Okay. And tell us about your particular character.
I play Jane Bennett. I play the elder sister of Elizabeth, so I'm the oldest of the Bennet girls. She's really close to Elizabeth, they're best friends, and yeah.
So what do you like about your character, or dislike about your character?
I like that she is sweet and nice, and she's very hopeless romantic. I don't like that she has pretty much no opinions about anything. I would like her to be a little bit stronger in herself.
All right. And how about you, Gary?
Well, so one of the things I like about Mr. Bingley is that he's overwhelmingly positive. He never has a negative word to say about anybody, and that's most of the reason why he's so well liked by everyone in the play. However, he's a little bit dependent, especially on Mr. Darcy, and that part is a little less admirable. And he also, his overwhelmingly positive attitude makes him a little lacking as far as the diverse personality aspect goes. Yeah.
What are the difficulties in preparing for a period piece like this? I mean, it's a different way of speaking, it's different language. You have to even carry yourself differently. So how did you all manage that?
Well, I think for me it was a certain mindset you had to get into. For example, there's, like you said, the way you carry yourself is a big aspect of it. You have to have good posture. You have to present yourself like a gentleman would in that time period, and that's vastly different to the way that one generally presents themselves in present time. And of course, the dialogue is of course another aspect that a lot of people remember about Pride and Prejudice, and one thing that makes it stick out. And of course, it's a very, very different way of speaking. Not even just limited to the accents that you have to put on, but the actual manner of speaking is quite different, and it's something that has to be gotten used to.
And what makes you guys happy to do this play? I mean, what makes you laugh during the rehearsal process?
Don't look at me like that.
Because I hear a lot of laughing.
Mostly inappropriate things. It's just finding things that I guess you can relate to and you can pick out as funny, and you can make them an ongoing thing you can laugh at. There are always new things every night to laugh at.
I hear there's a bit of dancing. Did that make you all laugh?
Yeah, that was definitely something to laugh at, and really it's just, you know, there's a lot of friends have come together in this play, a lot of people that have already worked together, a lot of people that know each other, so it's a very comfortable atmosphere. And of course, being that the manner and the tone of Pride and Prejudice is so different than what we as actors are a lot of times used to portraying, there are many moments where those differences will become blatantly obvious, and it'll make for a moment of humor just because of how period it is, essentially.
How long have you all rehearsed for this? Must be a while.
We started rehearsing the beginning of August. We had a read through at the end of July, and then we started rehearsing around the first or second week of August. So.
And how many times a week?
3.
3 times.
3 times a week.
Long rehearsals. What do you like about performing in the community theater? I think you really kind of touched on that, the friend making. And
yeah, I mean, that's one thing that's definitely very likable about it. You get very used to the community. You get exposure to other community theaters that you may not be so used to performing with, and those people will come over and do a play with one theater, and people will switch over, and so you'll meet a lot of different people, and then it gets to the point where when you do a play at one of these theaters, there's a good chance that you're going to know at least a few people. And like I said, it just makes it a much more comfortable atmosphere. And I think it's easier to work in than trying to get used to a bunch of new people, trying to get used to how they work, what their strengths are, what their weaknesses are, and things like that.
Now, I know you'll spend a lot of time running lines even outside the actual rehearsal process, but what is it right before you step on the stage for the first time, what is it that you do before you go on stage to do that?
For like a performance or for a rehearsal?
For a performance, yeah.
Usually for me, I'm probably bouncing around backstage for no reason. But after that, before you walk on stage for the first time, I just kind of let everything go out of my mind and say something completely random in my head that has nothing to do with anything, and then walk on.
That kind of clears your head?
It clears your head, and it makes me less nervous, I think.
Good.
Yeah, I think I can kind of relate to that feeling as well. Because some people will run lines in their head before they go out or something like that. But for me, it's if I don't have it in my head at that point, I'm probably not going to. So I'm usually at that point relatively comfortable with the lines and the way I've been able to do things. And up until that point, you will have had plenty of rehearsals where you won't be using scripts. You won't have anyone telling you what to do. And so at that point, it's relatively routine, and I try and just let that sink in, that it's comfortable. I've done it a million times, and I'll do it right this time too. So.
Just relax and enjoy it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you both so much for coming today, and I really appreciate it, and we look forward to seeing you both on the stage. And we'll be back in just a little bit with 2 more actors from Pride and Prejudice. Thank you.
This is my Laurel.
Where the past is not only restored and preserved, it's celebrated. Community, art, culture, history, pride. Where old school class never goes out of style, ushering in the next generation of Main Street entrepreneurs.
This is my Laurel.
For all things Laurel, tune in to Laurel TV. Turn your power on.
Back with 2 more actors from Pride and Prejudice. So please introduce yourself and tell me what part you're playing in Pride and Prejudice.
My name's Julie Rogers, and I'm playing Elizabeth Bennet.
My name's Danny Shaw, and I'll be playing Mr. Darcy.
Now tell me a little bit about your characters.
Elizabeth is a woman who she's a part of a family. She has 4 sisters and a mom and dad, and her dad runs a business, and she's a very down-to-earth woman in the show.
And Danny, how about your character?
Mr. Darcy is somewhat opposite to Jane's character. I guess he's the pride of the Pride and Prejudice, and he's a landed, wealthy individual, somewhat elitist. But at his core, he's a kind person, but he puts off kind of an aristocratic personality, which rubs a lot of people the wrong way.
Is there any part of your character that you like?
I like that he speaks his mind. I but maybe he could do it a little bit more, you know, tactfully or something. But,
So that's
yeah.
the part that you dislike.
Yeah, how he, you know, the way he speaks his mind is not as gentle, but at least he does it, which most people nowadays are afraid to, but he could definitely do it in a better fashion.
Julie, how about you? What part of your character do you like?
I like her because she's like on the spunky side of that time period. She likes to speak her mind as well, and she doesn't really conform to society's definitions of men or relationships in general. So.
And is there any part of her that you don't like?
She is also more outspoken than I am sometimes, so that's one thing that I'm like.
Now, you have lots of dialogue. In the dialogue, there's a lot of lines and a lot of different ways of speaking. It's not how we speak now. So what did you all do to prepare yourself for all this?
We had a dialect coach come in for us to help us with the accents. And then our director, Larry Simmons, he helped us with trying to speak slower, because a lot of Americans talk very fast, and in this show we have to speak very slow. So he's been coaching us with that. Mm-hmm.
Do you have any certain ways that you like to memorize your lines? Any techniques that you use?
If I have a good commute or I have to drive to a job site, sometimes I'll just review them in my head. And I always wonder when I'm at stoplights if people turn and look and see someone just talking. Now everybody talks on their cell phones, so it probably doesn't look as strange as it did in the past. But
What is your favorite line of dialogue, Julie?
Mine is, I'm talking to Jane, and it's after she gets proposed to, and I say, "Till I have your goodness, I can never have your happiness. If I'm lucky, I will meet with another Mr. Collins." And Mr. Collins in the show is not a fun man to be with, so it's just kind of poking fun at him, which is fun.
How about you, Danny?
I don't know if I have a favorite line of Darcy's, because a lot of his lines aren't necessarily something you should be saying particularly often. But I think one of the better lines you get to examine how he is as a person and why, you know, maybe he does say the things he does when he, you know, asks for Miss Bennet's hand and she rejects him, and he is just bluntly, you know, is this all the reply I'm to expect? You know, may I ask if there's any, you know, why have you so little civility in your response, basically? And he's always been given everything and been catered to. So it's the first time where he's examining, like, well, this is strange, you know. I'm doing you a favor by offering my hand in marriage, you know, to this, you know, peasant, so to speak. So.
That's good. Before you go on stage, what's the last thing you do before you go on stage? Julie?
I take a drink of water. I take a drink of water, and I take right before I go on stage, I take a breath as Elizabeth would, and then I walk on stage.
And how about you, Danny?
I think it depends how far along the show is. If it's the first couple weekends, I'm probably reviewing my script right until I stand on stage. If I'm comfortable with my lines or I'm not doing that, I tend to just stand right before I'm visible and clear my head, not think about anything. And typically my heart is racing a little bit, which I do think it's an adrenaline rush. Like playing sports as well, I used to get the same feeling. So I think that's why I enjoy it.
So how long does it take before that pounding of the heart stops in the show? Or does it ever?
It doesn't, no, it stops. I think the pounding of the heart's probably more so before your first line of every act, you know, before you enter the stage the first time. Sometimes it's nice, you enter the stage and you're interacting with characters before you speak, but typically that's not the case. I go on the stage and I'm saying something. So your heart's racing that first line, you just hope your voice doesn't indicate that your heart is racing.
Well, Julie, tell why people should come to see Pride and Prejudice at Laurel Mill Playhouse.
If you like classics and love romances, definitely come see Pride and Prejudice. You're supporting your community by going to Laurel Mill Playhouse, especially in the arts. So yeah, it's a great fun show and it's classic.
Yeah, and then if you're ever interested in getting involved, this is a segue to that. Come see one of the productions of Laurel Mill and then get to know any of the actors or producers, directors. So.
Right. There's like 22 characters in this in this show. So there's a lot of people, you may end up knowing them. You might have passed them on the street. So please come and see Pride and Prejudice at Laurel Mill Playhouse. It starts October 21st and goes through November the 13th. It's every Friday and Saturday, last 2 weekends, it's Sunday matinees, and we have a couple Thursdays shown in too. So you can find out more information and purchase your tickets by going to www.laurelmillplayhouse.org. We also have a Facebook page, actually a group, Facebook group, and you can join that and we can give you up-to-date information. So thank you both for coming out and talking about Pride and Prejudice, and I'm looking forward to seeing it.
Thanks for having us.